When my uncle was president, we spent zero in this country on chronic disease. Zero. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion, so about 95% of our health budget. It's the biggest item in our budget, and it is the fastest growing. All of our other issues are small towards it if you just measure its economic impact.
And what do you think is driving the obesity epidemic?
It's
such a transformation.
Yeah, I mean, it's being driven by poison food. President Trump called me on August 23rd, immediately after his shooting at Butler. He called me 3 hours later on the telephone, and he asked me to meet with him the next day in Milwaukee. And we had a 2.5-hour meeting then and a number of subsequent meetings. And during those meetings, he urged me to unify our parties and to work with him. And he wanted to make America healthy again and end the chronic disease epidemic that is destroying our children. And that is an existential threat to our nation.
I can't understand anybody that doesn't want to get behind this mission that RFK Jr. is on. I have nothing but respect for him. He's been speaking about this for decades, and I think that this is the most important problem to address right now.
One of the things you've done that I think is unprecedented and that's become perhaps more part of the public discussion since you've teamed up with Trump is to make public health a political issue. You've concentrated on that in a way that just isn't characteristic of anybody on the political landscape at all. Now it's
this is what I respect so much. He's actually brave enough to stand up and say the way it is. Too many people are worried about being cancelled and all this censorship, which is another reason why I'm for Trump. I'm for free speech. I'm not into all this censorship. We have been failed in many ways, and this is so catastrophic on human beings. Like I say, I can't think of anything more urgent to address than the health crisis, and America is the sickest country on the planet.
It's become an issue that's front and center.
When my uncle was president and I was a 10-year-old boy, the rate of chronic disease in this country was 6%. Today, it's 60%. When my uncle was president, we spent zero on chronic disease in this country. There were no drugs to treat it. Today, we spend $4.3 trillion. $4.3 trillion. That's
in sort of 5 or 6 decades. You know, imagine where we will be if we don't fix this problem soon, quickly, yesterday. Imagine where we'll be in another 50, 60 years. I'm really hoping that we can at least start to fix this tainted, poisonous food system that everybody is a victim of.
5 times our military budget. It's the largest cost to our nation, and it is bankrupting us. And it is destroying us morally because we are betraying our children by letting these industries poison them. The rate of obesity at that time was 3%. Today, it's 50% in our children. And 74% of Americans are obese or overweight. We didn't suddenly become lazy and gluttonous. We are being mass poisoned by corrupt industry. In Japan,
something that may seem reasonably innocuous to the average person, you know, a loaf of sourdough bread, you look at the back and you see what they've put in that bread. There's no need for it. And it's a lot of these additives that causes this inappropriate inflammation, that causes people to be inflamed in such a way that they set off autoimmunity or they have diabetes, all of these kinds of things. Obesity is just rife. It wasn't too long ago that a lot of these diseases were pretty much unheard of. And now they're everywhere. Everybody knows about them. Everybody's got a relative or a friend or a colleague that has some kind of autoimmune disease, different skin conditions and mental conditions, different medications. And it's crazy because people don't see it, that they are being poisoned.
Where they don't have this kind of corruption, the obesity rate is 3%. That's what it's supposed to be, 3%.
I mean, I kind of agree with that, though I do believe that it should be closer to 0%. Name me an animal in nature that eats what they've always eaten, what they're designed to eat, what they've evolved to eat, who is fat and sick and inflamed. They don't exist unless they are hibernating. They're trying to gain weight, and then they're designed to do that. You don't see like fat deer, chronically inflamed penguins, and it's not an issue in nature.
It's not supposed to be 50%, and this is a national security threat. 77% of American kids are no longer qualified for military service because of chronic disease diagnoses. And what are these diseases? They're obesity, they're neurodevelopmental disorders, and I'm going to list some of them because I'm a 70-year-old man. And when I was a boy, I never heard of any of these diseases because nobody.
So true. I've got a lot of customers who are around 60, 70 years old, and they say the exact same thing. When I was a kid, when I was 12, when I was 10, when I was 15, I never heard of Alzheimer's. I'd never heard of Parkinson's or dementia or ADD and Tourette's and all of this stuff. Is just so common. It's become normal that your child needs braces, glasses, multiple medications. You know, we're all overweight and pre-diabetic like that. That's not normal. That's absolutely not normal. You know, you should not be in that situation with your health at such a young age or ever, honestly.
Nobody had them. Well, I had 11 siblings. I had about 70 first cousins. And I didn't know anybody with ADD, ADHD, speech delay, language delay, sleep disorders, Tourette's syndrome, narcolepsy, ASD, or autism. The autism rate in my generation today in 70-year-old men is 1 in 10,000. The autism rate in our children is 1 in 34. In California, as Callie just said, it's 1 in 24.
This is just absolutely diabolical. I mean, that is almost unbelievable. A lot of these people that suffer with autism, they are deficient in things like carnitine, choline, heme, B12, D3, DHA, EPA, all of which are found almost exclusively in fatty animal products. Autism rates are very high among vegans. I wonder why.
The rate in boys is much higher. We also saw this explosion of autoimmune diseases like rheumatoid arthritis and Crohn's disease and lupus and juvenile diabetes, all of these exotic diseases that we never heard of as a kid.
All autoimmune disease is sitting on a foundation of a leaky gut, so intestinal permeability. What causes that? Well, seed oils, glyphosate, lectins, gluten, fiber, alcohol. Potentially, casein can cause permeability in the gut, so that's a milk protein. This is the stuff that causes a lot of the issues in human beings. We are not designed to eat this stuff.
The diabetes rate when I was a kid was effectively 0. A typical pediatrician, when I was a young boy, would see 1 case of diabetes in his lifetime, in his career, a 40 or 50-year career. Today, 1 out of every 3 children who walks through his office door is diabetic or pre-diabetic.
The children thing, it's like you expect them to say 1 in 3 adults. No, 1 in 3 children. Like, oh my goodness.
And nobody's talking about it. Nobody's saying anything. Nobody is recognizing that we are being mass poisoned by big pharma and big food.
You can tell how genuine and passionate this guy is, and I can't help but empathize with him and his position. He's been trying so hard to address this problem, and finally he's in a position where he can make a difference.
And all these allergic diseases that suddenly appeared. I never knew a kid anywhere in any of the schools that I went to that had a peanut allergy or food allergies or egg.
It's actually really interesting that, but I think really what's going on is the average human being's immune system is compromised. Their defenses are compromised because of destroying the gut. If you care about your health, you need to cut out grains, you need to cut out processed foods, cut out seed oils, pull back on the carbohydrates.
Eczema. My brother had asthma, and he was told by his doctor there will never be a cure for asthma because it's so rare that nobody will ever study it. Today, 1 out of every 8 black children in America's cities has asthma. What is happening to our children? And I saw this happening, and I began writing about it, and the media rose up and silenced me in 2005.
I wonder why.
And nobody would talk about it. The doctors wouldn't talk about it. The pediatricians wouldn't talk about it. The scientists, the government officials. And people warned me, if you keep talking about this, you're going to destroy your career. And I was stunned by this. And for 19 years, since 2005, I spend 30 minutes praying every day when I get out of bed. I ask God for 19 years to put me in a position where I could end the chronic disease epidemic and bring health back to our children. And in August, God sent me Donald Trump.
I can't vote, and I know it's late really making this video, but if I could vote, I know exactly who I'll be voting for. I don't believe there is a more important or pressing issue present right now, certainly in America. So anyway, hope you've enjoyed it. Like, comment and subscribe if you haven't already, and I will see you in the next one. Cheers, guys.